We are back. Gridiron 360 hitting it up. Dave and Bill talking free agency updates by division. Bringing you guys up to date on the haps with this free agency market division by division. We are moving on to the NFC South. Just wrapped up the NFC East. Talking a little bit about things that have happened. And we're kind of dating back to last week, the 19th of March. So now we move on to the NFC South, and let's tell you a little bit about what's happened since last week. So on the 19th, the Panthers acquired wide receiver Keith Kirkwood from the New Orleans Saints. That was a one-year deal. Okay. One of the things of note here is that Kirkwood played at Temple under Matt Rule. When Matt Rule was coaching there. How about that?
Little 6 degrees.
A little something, something, something. And we'll have more to say about that relationship. Not that relationship, but Rule's relationship with some other signings they've had. Moving on to the 20th, the Atlanta Falcons, after cutting running back Devonta Freeman, and then shortly thereafter, the Rams parting ways with Mr. Todd Gurley. Mr. Todd Gurley, running back, signs with the Atlanta Falcons on a one-year deal. He's coming home.
Yep.
This is a guy that...
home, in essence, of college.
Yeah, he played football at the University of Georgia, made a name for himself, had a fantastic college career, and gets to come home a little bit. There's been some bumps and bruises. We know he has some deterioration in the knees, how it'll work out. I certainly think it's an upgrade from what they had, if they can keep him healthy throughout the season. But I don't think they can play the game that the Rams were playing last year, where they were trying to manage, what was it? Load management.
No, I think what this to me is, it's a redemption story for Atlanta, and it's a redemption story for Todd Gurley. There's no guarantee it's going to happen, but I think the idea is Gurley wasn't going to get big money from anybody. Certainly nowhere near what he was getting paid. He was at like $15 million a year, and now this is a $6 million deal, I believe.
Yep.
Atlanta is in probably the worst situation of any NFL team coming into this offseason, between age, lack of talent in areas, and cap space. Gurley obviously comes from, in my opinion, the second worst team in cap space, in the Rams. And the idea is, I think the Falcons needed an answer, and they paid a lot of money for Devonta Freeman, and he just was not able to stay healthy. And then when he came back this year, did not look anything like he had in previous years when he was healthy. Concussions, I think, certainly played a role in his body. He plays a violent type game, and I think it's worn him out. So I think this is the one team that would be willing, one of probably the few teams, but would be willing to go ahead and allow him to run the wheels off of Todd Gurley with the idea that he might get hurt and there's nothing we can do. I think the Falcons are in for a losing season. But if Gurley can stay healthy and can show that he can run again, there's this opportunity to kind of re-spark the market for him. And the Falcons have lost players, and the few players they do have are aging. We've already talked about really the only superior talent they have offensively is Julio Jones, that's got value. Matt Ryan is a big number, but not going to, just is sliding down at the end of his career. Obviously, we talked about Freeman going. They've had to make some moves on the offensive line. So here's the point is, the Falcons get some name recognition to the Atlanta market, because it's going to be a rough couple of years in my mind for this local market to us. And so you bring in Gurley. The UGA is huge in this area for obvious reasons, and the Georgia fans might hopefully flock out to see Todd Gurley. I think that's what this really is in my mind. I don't know if you'd agree, but that's what it is to me.
When Gurley was the year Gurley was drafted, there were a lot of people that in Atlanta, I think they had a shot at him too, that wanted him here. So yeah, this should hopefully sell some seats.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Were we in the same date?
Yeah, we have some. I believe we have some NOs, some New Orleans.
We do have, but before we go to New Orleans, during the around the 20th of March, the deal for Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was officially signed. It was a 2-year deal, which we weren't sure about. It's a $50 million contract with another $9 million in incentives. So yeah, he's there, and then shortly thereafter, they part ways with Jameis Winston, and Jameis says goodbye to the Bucs. Another tidbit of news that I didn't include on there on this same date for the Bucs is that they they signed interior offensive lineman Joe Haig from the Indianapolis Colts. So a little extra protection for their man Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
All right, New Orleans signs a 5-year, re-signs guard Andrus Peat to a 5-year deal. All these deals I've been seeing are just about a year deal, maybe a few that are a 2-year deal. Yep. Obviously, Andrus Peat was a big offensive lineman coming out of college. He was a guy that I think has done okay with the Saints, but I don't know if he's necessarily lived up to expectations. He was a free agent this year, and I thought it was a question. I didn't know if they would actually keep him. But 5 years.
Well, if you remember the huge part of what we talked about, I'm probably got the side wrong, but I think he's penciled in as, is it the left guard? But this is a guy that has played. He started 50-plus games. I think his career is 55 games. He started 50 of them, so he's played in played in 50 of them. Left guard, and he's played 4 out of 5 positions on the line, excluding center. So he's incredibly versatile while still starting. So, this is the kind of guy like, hey, what happens if my left tackle gets hurt? You can kick him outside and bring in the guard. It allows you to have a little bit more flexibility in the event of injury. I think you can't start in the NFL 90% of your games in 5 years or whatever it is,
and not
4 years, and not be good enough to sign. So, and especially if you get him on the cheap, and not that he was cheap, but salaries are getting up there. I don't know. I listen, continuity. I'm sorry. I struggle to knock anything the Saints do, particularly offensively, over the last 5 years. And we're going to get into another one that's blows my mind.
Yep. So let's go New Orleans again on this date.
Yep.
They bring in slot receiver, Emmanuel Sanders from the runner-up Super Bowl contender, San Francisco 49ers. Now, if you remember, a guy that was a consummate slot player and effective with the Denver Broncos gets released or gets sent over to San Francisco last year. He showed up in a few games, but it was an offense that was predicated on pounding the football. So his role, I don't think, was as important as maybe it was in Denver at the time. Not to say he wasn't important. It's just the philosophy of that offense.
Yep.
But I will say this. You got Michael Thomas, the best receiver right now in the game.
Yep.
You got Drew Brees back. You've still got, what's his head at Jared Cook at tight end. He's a very capable young tight end. You've still got Alvin Kamara in the backfield.
No, don't even get me in the backfield.
Okay. The line obviously is shoring up. Their defense obviously is shoring up. I can't honestly remember a time, even when they had, what's his name? Mark. What was their other tall wide receiver before him? Marquise Smart. Hang, it'll come to me.
We talking about New Orleans?
Yeah. Come on. It'll come to me in a minute, folks. Sorry. Brain fart. Point is, I don't remember a time that Drew had 2 receivers like that on top of the tight end, the backfield, but 2 really viable. I mean, he's getting up there, but he's still very viable. And with Michael Thomas, a guy that they can put 2-3 guys on even, and he could still catch the ball. And then you got this little guy jittering around in the slot. This could spell a lot of trouble for the NFC South teams.
Well, here's what's interesting is, if you look at him on Denver and then you look at him going to San Francisco, for a good part of his time in Denver, I know it wasn't the hope, but he was the number 1 receiver.
Correct.
And he was definitely the best receiver on a San Francisco receiving core They did have an emergence of one of their rookies, but
I do think that might have had a lot to do with because I felt like Debo was showing some stuff early, but not consistently.
He's a rookie receiver.
And then when Sanders came in,
he actually became he elevated.
He elevated.
Debo
got better and better.
Here's the scary part to me about Emmanuel Sanders. To me, I look at him, and I'm not sitting here talking like he's a true number one or anything, but now all of a sudden he gets to play a role that I think is far more bred for what he is built for.
Yep. And
on an offense, it's already can blow the doors off you. If they're humming, they can blow the doors off you. Yep. And so, wow, I didn't know the Saints offense could get that much better, but this could be a big, again, it's not going to the end of the year and going, oh, did he have 1,400 yards? It's not about that. It's about the fact that if there is a guy that sees the field in the NFL, and I'm not talking about the GOAT that's playing down in Tampa. The best vision on the field, in my mind, in the NFL has been for years Drew Brees. And I'll tell you why.
Cool Brees.
Because he's never had arm strength like any of the other. He has never been like a Rodgers. Or, Brady's arm strength might be slipping some, but Brady could hum it when he needed to. This guy is pinpoint in his accuracy. So that's Drew Brees' to me, his strength. And you get to go catch balls from this guy, and I just look at it, and
it's a 2-year deal, 16 mil, and it could get up to 19 mil.
I like it if they can make it work on the cap.
I see a couple folks out there that have kind of been like ho hum, maybe kind of they're grading it C plus. I think I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care about his age. I mean, this guy, I think he is. This is a great get for the New Orleans Saints.
Again, it's because he doesn't have to be what everybody else wanted to do with him. And I think, you go back to it and you look at it, you can grade it all you want. It's a team that knows how to handle weapons. And good news today, speaking of the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton apparently has come out and said, even though he was one of the victims of the coronavirus, is been cleared. I assume that means they believe that he has run his course and that he did all right and survived.
So he's had it already, so that's good for him.
So he's going to run wild in the streets.
Yeah, he's going to run around naked and touch everything on Bourbon Street, and then lick his hands. All right, let's move on. The 21st, I didn't see much from the division. The 22nd of March, we saw New Orleans. There's a lot of New Orleans in this conversation. They bring back safety DJ Swearinger on a 1-year deal.
Which is important because we're going to talk about somebody they lost in the secondary at safety. In another podcast, we'll go into the depth. But as of, I think that happened yesterday, I believe, was Von Bell has gone to the Bengals. I knew it was Ohio. Bengals. So, that looks to be a replacement. That's I guess I would say comfortably that's not an upgrade, but can't keep everybody.
I don't know. I think that Von Bell, especially if he has to drop down and cover a slot or so, his pass coverage capabilities, he hits and he tackles well. It's something I would expect from a guy like that. I think he played linebacker at Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. He's still young. His coverage capabilities in passing game are less than desirable. And though Swearinger has been in the league a little bit longer out of South Carolina, I do think he's a better pass cover corner than Von Bell. Okay. Though he's got a little more tread on the tire. So let's see. Let's move on. The 23rd of March.
No, didn't you have something else from Atlanta there?
Did I?
You told me Atlanta. No, I have Atlanta. I'm going to give you ones from the 22nd.
You have Atlanta.
Oh, that's right. I did. I added that.
Okay, so
Atlanta.
Let me not jump to the 22nd. You go to, what did I miss on the 22nd?
Atlanta added offensive lineman. Oh, my God, I'm blanking on his first name. Last name's McCray. Came from the Browns. This, again, is kind of part of that. Atlanta's going after some retreads because they also went after wide receiver Laquan Treadwell. Now, you remember, he was a first-round pick for Minnesota, never panned out. Last year was cut going into the season. They re-upped him when Thielen went down, and he played, he got some playing time, was not spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. but Atlanta just doesn't have a lot to play with. So you can see, between this and the Gurley move.
Justin McCray.
Thank you. Justin McCray. These kind of moves are moves that Atlanta's got to fill out a roster, but this is part of the reason why I feel like they're moving backwards. Now, mind you, Atlanta still has Julio Jones for the time being. Not sure that's going to be the case by the end of next year. But they also have Ridley, Calvin Ridley. So they got some talent, but it just, and it is a roster filler, but it's a guy that, I don't know, doesn't spring hope
Excitement.
eternal.
Yeah. Did anything else that I missed?
That's the ones I got.
Okay, now I'll go on to the 23rd. The Carolina Panthers sign XFL quarterback P.J. Walker.
Okay.
Now, here's the other little tidbit. Remember when I said the relationship that Matt Rule had with Kirkwood? This is another one.
Okay.
P.J. Walker was a quarterback for Matt Rule at Temple as well.
All right.
So you got a little bit. He's, I think he was in the league a few years ago, maybe a practice squad guy, and then he went on to the XFL. Not old. I mean, he's still young, and now he's back in the NFL. And I actually watched a little video tidbit with him. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they were asking about, how do you feel about Cam? And he was like, that's a great player. I know he'll, I feel for the guy, but I know he'll pick himself up and move on and do his best and find a place. But he was excited about getting the role coming in. Obviously, Kyle Allen gone. It looks like he could be the guy right now behind Bridgewater, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, again, they've redone their entire quarterback room. P.J. Walker, because
very different than Bridgewater. He's a more mobile kid.
Yeah, I mean, Bridgewater is somewhat agile, but he's not a runner.
No.
This kid's a runner. He's a little bit undersized. A little bit in playing style, not so much talent, but a little bit in playing style. Reminds me a little bit of Vic, like the way he kind of runs around, holds the ball out, kind of looking downfield.
Yes.
Again, this is what I saw in the XFL, which obviously, unfortunately, was abbreviated because of the closing down of the league. But that's something that would be kind of interesting to me. What I guess I'm most interested in with Carolina is I do like it, and it kind of speaks to me a little bit about Carolina and just being kind of running it the right way. Is, Rule's putting his stamp on this team. He's doing it he's doing it in tandem with, I don't know who their GM is off the top of my head, but he's doing it in tandem with them. But they're remaking this team, and I can't really knock what they're doing right now, and especially given the fact that now they got to keep up with a Tampa team that just picked up, a guy that's pretty good playing quarterback, and you got New Orleans, who's just New Orleans. So I like what they're doing.
Yep. Okay, so let's stay with the 23rd. New Orleans also gets in the XFL business as they sign cornerback safety Dietrich Nichols from the Roughnecks of the XFL.
Wasn't that also where P.J. Walker was? Wasn't he on the Roughnecks too? I thought. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes.
He was. Okay.
Yes.
I thought he was on the Roughnecks. Here's the thing I want to say. And then because look, these guys are in the XFL for a reason. Couldn't make a practice squad for a team, but some things happen. And if you remember the Kurt Warner story, certainly we can go back to the USFL and some of the guys that came over. There was some big name talent in the USFL. The hope is that this can really become a developmental league. I think for the average football fan, we don't want a league that's going to compete with the NFL, but we certainly would benefit from a feeder league for guys that need reps and snaps, and that can come in and do something impressive in the NFL. So the hope is some of this takes off. You'll see some trendy retreading, but I do hope that some of these guys stick and at least become serviceable with a name, so we can keep that league afloat. And I mean, you and I talked about it. We watched a little bit of the XFL. The football was not terrible. It gives them a chance, much like minor league baseball is doing with the rules. They did it to test some rules. We talked about it. We kind of liked the kickoff rule, right?
Yeah.
The kickoff rule is kind of interesting without eliminating the kickoff, but kind of shifted where the line was versus where the punt was or the kick was from. So anyway, my point is, it'll be good if some of these projects come about, and that's kind of got a little off topic, but still important because we're going to see a few more of these, I imagine.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. The 24th of March, again, the New Orleans Saints My guy that they brought in at cornerback this year for my New York Giants, Janoris the Jackrabbit Jenkins. Obviously, Eli Apple gone. Got a little time there. They are going to keep him around. They're reworking his contract, and this will save them, the Saints, an additional $6 to $7 million in cap space.
Okay. Looking at I imagine the draft, because they were pretty thin if I remember looking at the cap number last time. But anyway, that's cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. Also on this, where are we on the 24th? At this point in time, I think we mentioned it earlier, Carolina officially cuts ties with quarterback Cam Newton.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, but certainly there's a little bit of a bone to pick on the Cam side. But we're not going to get into that now because we'll wait till he goes somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and then last but not least on this day, Carolina also adds wide receiver Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. I don't know about this one. You got mouths to feed now that you're putting him on there. You got your boy Christian McCaffrey, okay?
Well, that mouth's getting fed.
Okay, now you got Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore, who were all right together. Especially Moore had a great season last year. I think that was year 2. Okay, and they're going to expect to get fed. You've got the young tight end. It'll come to me in a minute. But they've got a tight end there. What's his name? I can't remember. It'll come to me. But he's not Olsen, but he is somebody that I think is going to see some reps receiving the ball. And now you add Robbie Anderson. I'm curious. I think they need more than adding a receiver like this. I feel like Curtis Samuel can, even though he drops into the slot most of the time, can take the top off the defense. I mean, Robbie Anderson, that's what he is good at. Even though he's a taller receiver, he's good at catching long balls downfield, taking a top off of a defense. I don't know. Maybe it'll help. I'm not sure that that's something they should address. It was a 2-year, $20 million deal.
Well, I think part of what they want to do, we think about Ian Thomas.
Okay. I think I said Irv.
I think what they were trying to address,
tight end.
Everybody thought that they were. I think it was pretty much widely known, just based off everything I was reading, that Robbie Anderson was probably going to command more money than he's worth.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like a foregone conclusion. I don't know. I mean, I have to look at their cap number, but it doesn't seem to me it's a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So, and was there any, can you see the guarantee on it by chance? But anyway, so, if this is something that doesn't work out, I don't necessarily have a problem with it as long as there's a get out after this year. Their receiving room, it was hard to tell. I mean, when we watched Cam Newton early in the year, he was chucking the ball down the field, but it was 10 yards past his receivers. And then when we got to Kyle Allen, it was all short route stuff. Like he really wasn't able to push the ball down the field. So we never really, I think, got a true understanding of like where DJ Moore is at, as an example, because he's coming into his third year, or fourth year, third year. So third year, yeah, because he came in with one of the Bears guys. But anyway, so I just, I guess I don't really have a problem. They would have locked him up for 3 or 4 years. That's probably a lot more alarming to me. Because they still have, they've got a guy on a rookie contract in DJ Moore, so you're not probably blown out the doors. And you also have to show your quarterback that you just paid all this money for that you're bringing in weapons to help him. Because remember, I mean, while Greg Olsen hasn't even been Greg Olsen for several years, it's still a weapon. They have,
but now they in free agency they brought in 2 receivers. I mean, like they brought in Kirkwood from New Orleans again.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd consider that high profile.
No, but I mean, like they're. A lot of receivers. I think you need more help than that. That's my point. So I don't know why that's been the focal point, but look, Matt Rule. If you paid attention to what he did as a head coach at Baylor, and even prior to that at Temple, it's a fast-paced offense.
Sure.
It's one that does like to throw the ball. Obviously, their main guy is their running back, but he can catch the ball too. But they're going to start to try. I think this offense is going to try to move fast. So maybe that's why. All right, last piece of NFC South news. Most recently, I think it was yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers re-sign Ndamukong Suh. He's expected to return. Well, I don't know if it's official yet, but the deal is supposed to be 1 year, $8 million. We've talked about him in recent casts when we were talking free agency in the South, especially touching on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a guy, despite what you may say, again, every team he's been on, their run D has been pretty darn solid. And last year in Tampa Bay, they were one of the best in the league. I'd have to look to see where they finished, but they were one of the best run Ds in the league, and that's what he's good at.
Yeah, he plays the game with an edge, and he's nasty, and sometimes, he's certainly gone over the line several times. He's not that guy he kind of was a little bit like Aaron Donald for a few years in Detroit in the sense that he was unblockable and a disruptor. He's probably not that guy anymore, but let me just say, this contract, give the assist to Tom Brady. This is what, when you bring a guy in like that, with that kind of credibility, I think
they were number one. They ended number one in rush defense last year.
I think Ndamukong Suh probably could have got paid more somewhere else. I'm not saying it's massive, but the idea to go get on a team that is going to have a pretty significant turnaround in record. I'm not giving him the division. I still think New Orleans beats them, but at least at this moment. But I'm not going to be blown. My mind won't be blown if Tampa Bay lights it up. So this is what happens: is you see guys want to go play with this, just like guys wanted to go play in New England when he was there. Guys want to play for Belichick, but guys want to play with Brady too. So and you see AB has been all over Twitter, he's twatting, he's crumping, looking to play.
Sorry, AB.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But that just tells you, though.
I'm done with that nonsense.
Right,
you
but
are
it's
bad for the NFL,
right,
sir.
But my point is, it's Tom Brady. People want to go play for him, and people will take cheaper contracts, even though they're on one-year deals. And this is a move that I think is very good for Tampa.
Cool. So that's going to wrap up NFC South free agency updates over the past week. We're going to move on next to your NFC North, where your Chicago Bears stay.
Bear down.
All right. Good times. We'll see you next time on the Gridiron.